Thank Hashem. We're able to learn every day. That's about learning. Shav the base and Mikdash immediately. One that needs refuah shleima, Shav refuah shleima, and brethren in the Ukraine should be safe. Okay, we're going to start Yud Zayin Amud Aleph at the Mishnah. B'Shamai Yoimrim. B'Shamai say, Mevi'in Shlamim Bein Simchan Aleim Avalei Oilas. Talking about on Yom Tov. Shammai holds that you're allowed to bring a carbon shlamim on Yom Tov. You go to the base of Mikdash, you bring your animal, shecht it on Yom Tov, you eat it on Yom Tov. It's no problem. Why? Because on Yom Tov you're allowed to do the malachas that are even malachas as long as they're reichel nefesh, as long as it's for food. But you can't do smichan, you can't lean on it. As we learned in the last Mishnah, that there's this major machlokes that goes on for generations. If you're allowed to do smicha on a carbon on Yom Tov, and Beis Shammai was on the side that it held that you're not allowed to do smicha on Yom Tov. Avalei oilas. Beis Shammai says, but you can't bring a carbon oila. They learn the pasuk that says, "Hu levada yeyasa lachem," that it alone you could do for you on Yom Tov. That means only for you, but not for gavaya. Something that only the mizbeach eats from, which is a burnt offering. You're not allowed to bring on Yom Tov. Beis Hillel say no. You're allowed to bring a shlamim. Of course, everyone agrees to that. You're allowed to bring an oila. They argue with Beis Shammai. And Simchan Aleim, they argue with another 5 generations besides Beis Shammai that holds that you're allowed to do smicha. You're allowed to lean on the carbon on Yom Tov. What happens if Shavuos falls out on a Friday? Now, according to Beis Hillel, there's no problem. You bring all your karbanos on Yom Tov. According to Beis Shammai, that's a little problematic because the oilas cannot be brought on Yom Tov, as we just learned. You can only bring shlamim on Yom Tov, not the oila. One of the karbanos that you had to bring was an oilas riyah. Every time you visit the base of Mikdash, you have to bring a carbon. So, every holiday that you visit the base of Mikdash, you have to bring a carbon. So, Beis Shammai Yoimrim Yom Tevuach Achar Shabbos. The problem is you can't do it the day after. Usually there's one day of a tashlumin, or maybe more than one day, Yom Tevuach. There's a problem here because the day following Shavuos is Shabbos. No one holds you can bring karbanos on Shabbos, private karbanos. So Beis Shammai says you'll do it on Sunday. Sunday will be the day when you'll make up all of the sacrifices that were supposed to be brought on the holiday. Beis Hillel Oimrim Ein Yom Tevuach Achar Shabbos. Says we don't do that on a Sunday. Beis says you don't do that on a Sunday. Now the Gemara is going to explain. Beis Hillel holds that you don't need to do it because you're able to bring every type of carbon you're able to bring on Yom Tov. Now it could be that there wasn't a special day. You still had 7 days to make it up, according to everyone. Umaydim shemchal aliyas b'Shabbos shem tuvach achar Shabbos. Last day of Yom Tov.
It's the day after. It's already a weekday. It's not even Yom Tov.
Yeah, you can't bring it after.
So that's
yeah. Yeah, but over there you had 7 days already to bring the karbanos. What do you do for the karbanos of? I don't know. Did you need to bring special karbanos just for Shmini Atzeres? I'm not sure. I mean,
sounds like you do. Read the Muslim. It says that
no, there were karbanos that the community brought, but I don't know if you need to bring a special shlamim just for Shmini Atzeres. Could be. I know it's regel b'fnei asmei, but I don't know if they had to bring their own. I don't know. Okay. So if Shavuos is actually Shabbos, then everyone agrees that you can't bring the karbanos on Shabbos, even Beis Hillel. So therefore, Yom Tevuach means the day of Shechita. That would be on the Sunday. Now, Ein Kohen Gadol Mislabish B'Kelev. On that day, on that Sunday, the Kohen Gadol does not wear his nice clothing. And it's not talking about the big day Kohen Gadol. It's talking about when he goes out into the market. He doesn't wear Shabbos clothes. Mutarim behesped b'tainis. and you're also allowed to do a eulogy, and you're allowed to fast. This is all just to negate an opinion that held that Shavuos is always on a Sunday. It was an opinion of the Tzedukim, the Baitusim, that they held that you start counting Mimachras HaShabbos, that you start counting for the Omer on a Sunday. And yeah, that would be Lahavta, like the Easter, you know, it's always on a Sunday. It would be based on their Tzedukim things. When it says Machras HaShabbos, it means after Saturday. But we say Mimachras Shabbos means after Yom Tov. We start counting the Omer the day after the first day of Pesach. After Yom Tov, Shabbos over there means Yom Tov. They say no. They say that Hashem wanted to give the people a long weekend. So that's actually what they claim. So that it always means that it's always going to be on a Sunday. Yeah, which means 7 weeks later, Shavuos is always going to be on Sunday. 7 weeks is always going to. So we don't want to show that. So we say that no, you're allowed to make a eulogy, even though you're bringing all these sacrifices that day, because it turned out that Shavuos fell on Shabbos. You have to bring the sacrifice on the Sunday, but we don't want it to look like an actual holiday. We're just doing it as to correct, or not to correct, to fill in the day that we missed. Amar Abelazar, Amar Abaishia is actually a major machlokes. Rashi and Taisus over here. I learned the Gemara according to Rashi that says that it's not the big day Kohen Gadol. Taisus says, so then why are you talking about the Kohen Gadol? I said it's not the Kohen Gadol's 8 garments, special garments. It's talking about just when he goes into the marketplace, he shouldn't dress Shabbos stick. So Taisus asks, so why the Kohen Gadol shouldn't dress Shabbos stick? Everyone should not dress Shabbos stick. Yeah. Okay. So the Gemara says, Amar Abelazar, Amar Abaishia. These are Amiraim in Eretz Yisrael, early Amiraim. They make the following statement. They ask it with a question, but it's really a statement. How do you know that Shavuos has 7 days to make up for the sacrifices that need to be brought? They're asking what's the source for it, but they're also teaching us that that's the halacha, that you have 7 days to make up for the sacrifices. Shnemar, they quote a pasuk. B'chag hamatzos, b'chag hashvuos, b'chag hasukos. Right? We say it. B'chag hamatzos. The 3 holidays. Okay. So what do we do from that? Makis chag hashvuos l'chag hamatzos. We compare Shavuos to Chag hamatzos. Okay, what's the comparison? Easy. Just like when it comes to Pesach, how long is the holiday of Pesach? You have 7 days to make up for the sacrifices that are supposed to be brought. So to Shavuos is listed in the same pasuk as Pesach. You have 7 days to make up for the sacrifices, even though Shavuos is only 1 day in Eretz Yisrael, but you have 7 days to make up for the sacrifices. And that we learned because of this connection in the pasuk. Umar says, 1 second. You have another holiday in that pasuk. Maybe you should compare it to Sukkot. And what's in Sukkot? Over there you have 8 days to make it up. Maybe for Shavuos you should have not 7 days to make it up. You should have 8 days to make it up. It says Shmini Regel B'fnei Atzmio. The 8th day is its own holiday. We can't compare it. Well, the Gemara says, that's only regarding 6 items. That Shmini Atzeres is its own holiday. We've had this before, and basically, Pazer Kashev stands for, it's a Rosh Tevis. Stands for Pius, the first one. That means that the lotteries that they would do to decide which Kayanim would bring which Karban was redone. It did not go, there was a system of how to get all the Karbanas in on the first 7 days of Sukkot, because there were so many cows, which families would be bringing that, there was a system of how to divide that up. But when it came to Shmini Atzeres, they restarted the whole thing and they did a new count. It didn't have to do with, well, who did, it depends who did yesterday. It didn't work like that. The rest of Sukkot, who did yesterday? That was part of it. There was a new pious, yeah. What's his name? Pious, right? Zman, that's the Zion, stands for Shechianu, according to Rashi. Everyone says that you say Shechianu on Shmini Atzeres. Then the Reish stands for Regel B'fnei Atzmai. That it's not called Sukkos, it's called Shmini Atzeres. That's how Rashi learns it. Also, that the Karbanos are different. They don't go in the order of Sukkos. Sukkos went 13, 12, 11, 10, 9, 8. And now it doesn't continue with that to 7. It goes 7, 6. It goes to 1. It's not in the same descending order. And
Sukkot goes 14.
yeah, it starts with the amount of pariachag, amount of the animals. The shin was shir, the song, and the bays was a bracha that they would bless the king.
Isn't there also a difference in Lina?
And we're going to see Lina. We're gonna see. No. The song was the song of the day. It was a special song that went in an order for the Humbehi, that went in the order of it was a bunch of different songs that went that were during Sukkot, and you don't do that order with Shmini Atzeres. Yeah, Tosfos argues on 2 of these things. He argues on Regel B'fnei Atzmai and Shir, and does he argue on bracha also? He doesn't mix in this blessing the king. He says that has to do with the bracha means birkas hamazon, that you add in yalav yavai into birkas hamazon, and into Shmini Atzeres. And when you add in yalav yavai on Shmini Atzeres, you don't add in Chag HaSukkot. You add in Shmini Atzeres HaChag Hazeh, or Chag Shmini Atzeres Hazeh, whatever the nusach is. Okay. Tosfos quotes Rabbeinu Tam in one of the Yotzros that he says that it's Regel B'fnei Atzmai. He says that it has to do with breaking the Shiva and the Shleishim. That you broke the Shiva by Sukkot. You started the Shiva, if someone was in mourning and they started the Shiva before Yom Tov, so Yom Tov comes in and breaks the Shiva. Then you get the Shmini Atzeres breaks the Shleishim. It's considered like 14 days, like covered. So, and I think it also breaks the Shleishim. Whatever the case is. So he quotes from Rabbeinu Tam's Ma'ariv. You know, the Nusach Ashkenaz has these Yotzros, they add in these. So he says, and Rabbeinu Tam has it in his Ma'ariv, he says, Lalina Shleishim Yidachim Kasher Avelim Yenachim. Yeah, I tried to look it up this morning. I have a Nusach Ashkenaz Machzor, I couldn't find it though. Not everyone is published. Not every piyut is published in the Machzor. Okay. So we say, what are you telling me? You want to say that we should compare Shavuos, not to Pesach, but to Sukkot, because Sukkot has Shmini Atzeres, and it really should be 8 days. You say, well, the 8th day is really Regel B'fnei Atzmai. You say, well, it's only Regel B'fnei Atzmai concerning these 6 items. Avalin and Tashlum Derishnu. But we know when it comes to makeup of the sacrifices, the 8th day could be used to make up the sacrifices. So it would have been a good comparison. The Tanan started in the Mishnah, Mishlei Chag v'yem tov rishon shel Chag. Someone that did not bring his carbon Chagigah on the first day of the holiday, Chagigah Kol Regel v'yem tov achrim, he's allowed to bring it until the last day, until Shmini Atzeres. So why are we saying that Shavuos only has 7 days to make up? Let's compare it to Sukkot. So we'll have 8 days to make up the sacrifices. A little extra time. Gemara says tefasta meruba, like tefasta mot, tefasta. Yeah, it's in several places, tefasta meruba. But what the idea is, different interpretations, but always take the lesser amount. You won't go wrong. at least you'll get the lesser amount. If you have two options, the larger or the smaller, always take the smaller. Because if you take the larger incorrectly, they'll say, oh, you weren't supposed to do that, and then you're left with nothing. But if you take the smaller one, you knew you were supposed to take one, at least that you have. You'll always have the smaller amount.
True.
Ella, so now the Gemara says, if it's not teaching me anything, Chag HaSukkos in that pasuk, so why does it say it?
Well, it wasn't Fastim.
Fastim Ruba is if you grab too much,
Right.
light the fasta. So that's telling me that I'm not supposed to take. I'm not supposed to do a comparison from Shavuos to Sukkot. I do a comparison from Shavuos to Pesach, which is only 7 days instead of 8 days.
No.
It says, so why does it say, the extra piece? So, yeah, that's like a conservative investments. So more, maybe you'll be left with something at the end instead of it's Vastam Maruba, and that's a little more risky. So,
What does the Rebbe say about that? His thing's always double it. You know,
Yeah.
That's the double. Rumor would be
do you think the Rebbe's approach was to take risky
Not risky.
investments?
but it wasn't risky. That's the point. We thought it was risky, but you know, there's no risk involved to it.
Okay. So the Gemara says, so why does it have to say Chag HaSukkos if it doesn't teach me that how many days I have for Shavuos? So it says Lakushi LaChag HaMatzos, coming to compare something to Chag HaMatzos. Ma Chag HaMatzos turn lina, Chag HaSukkos turn lina. It wants to tell me that you have to stay overnight for Shmini Atzeres as well. You can't just leave the night after Shmini Atzeres. Yeah, you're not supposed to go to the Beis Hamikdash, bring your sacrifice, and then leave on the same day, like you're a big businessman that you do your trips like in and out the same day. You're not supposed to do that. You're supposed to, what is it? Yeah, fly into that. You're not supposed to do that. You're supposed to stay overnight. That's the way it's supposed to be done. So we learn that Shmini Atzeres, you also have to stay overnight. It's a quick holiday, but you have to stay overnight. And where do we know? By we're learning that from Pesach.
What's especially for anytime you bring a card.
Well, you're right. You're right. Anytime you bring a carbon. Maybe this is where we learn it from. This is where we know that every time. How do we know it by Pesach that it works like this? So that in the morning you will go back to your tent. That you don't go back on Yom Tov itself. You have to wait till after the Yom Tov, which could be Chol Hamoed or whatever. Then you would go back home. So we learned from this that even on the other holiday, even Shmini Atzeres, you have to wait overnight. Okay. Yossi's asking that it doesn't have to do with Yom Tov. If someone goes to the Beis Hamikdash and brings a carbon, he's supposed to stay overnight anyway, even if it's not Yom Tov. That's what you're asking. I'm not sure. You have to see what's going on in this Taisvus. Towards the end of Taisvus, he says, "For Rebbe Chanan Tiritz, to beis in Yonei Linahim, achas mishum yamtiv, v'hashenis mishum karban shetan lina." Yeah, there's something going on over here. You have a point. Okay, Tanan was taught in the Mishnah, Atzeres shechol yis erev Shabbos. If Shavuos falls on Erev Shabbos, Shavuos is on a Friday. According to Beis Shammai, you're not allowed to bring karbanos on Yom Tov. And everyone holds you can't bring karbanos on Shabbos. So Bishama Yomer Yom Tevuach Achar Shabbos. Bishama says Sunday is going to be the day. It's 2 days later. Beisil Yomer Ein Yom Tevuach. There's no problem. Why? Because according to Beisil, you're allowed to bring the kabbanas on Yom Tov itself. My love Ein Yom Tevuach Klal. It means that you have no Yom Tevuach. Tevuach means shchita. You don't have a day of slaughter, which means you don't have the makeup day to offer the sacrifices. It means you don't have any makeup day. The Gemara says, you don't need a makeup day. My kamash malan. What's the chiddush over here? The makravin b'yomi. That you're allowed to bring, what's he trying to say? That you're allowed to bring the kabbanas on Yom Tov? We know that machlokes already. That was already a discussion before. The Tanana was taught in the Mishnah. Bishamai says you're not allowed to bring the oilas, the burnt offerings on Yom Tov. Bisil says you are allowed to. So we know that machlokes. Now you're telling me, oh, if it falls on Friday, so we have a machlokes if you have to make it up on Sunday. What are you telling me? Are you allowed to bring them on Yom Tov? Well, you just said that there's a machlokes if you're allowed to bring them on Yom Tov. So it's tzricha. We need both of these machlokes in because each one teaches me something. The Yashmin and Baha. If you would just tell me that on a regular weekday, Yom Tov is on a regular weekday, on a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, whatever. There's a machlokes Beishamai and Beisil if you're allowed to bring an oila on that Yom Tov. Amri Beishamai Mishum Def Shalamacher. Over there, Beishamai would say, we're strict. You're not allowed to bring a carbon on Yom Tov. Why? Could bring it tomorrow. What's tomorrow? Thursday, Wednesday, Tuesday, Monday, whatever tomorrow is. It's not a problem. So on Yom Tov, don't bring it. But let's say Yom Tov fell on a Friday, where you can't bring it tomorrow. Maybe Beishamai would say, well, this is an exception. You can't bring it tomorrow. You could bring it on Yom Tov. So it has to tell me that you don't bring it on Yom Tov even then, that you do it on Sunday. Okay? So maybe just tell me the Sunday one, and then I would know automatically the other one. The Yashmin and Baha. And if you would only tell me that if it falls on Erev Shabbos, that you do it on Sunday, maybe Baha Kamre Beisil, maybe that's when Beisil says that you bring sacrifices on Yom Tov. Because they don't want to do it on Sunday because it's 2 days later. But how do you know that Beisil would be lenient even if Yom Tov was in the middle of the week, that you can bring oilas on Yom Tov? Maybe they would be strict that kabbanas preferably should not be brought on Shabbos. They should be brought after Shabbos, and they would agree to Beishamai. So tzricha. That's that both machlokes. Okay. Gemara does that. Now we're going to go back to bring a raya that you have tashlumin. The Gemara started off. Amar Ablazim Rabbi, how do you know that Shavuos has tashlumin, makeup days that you could bring them the sacrifices for 7 days? We quoted a pasuk, Chagamatzis, Chagashvos, Chagasukas. The Gemara now says, Tashma, Mishalei Chag, Shivas Yimei Pesach, Ushmanis Yimei Chag, the Yom Tov Shel Atzeres. It's not supposed to say Harishon. The Gemara takes that out. The Yom Tov, if someone didn't bring his Chagigah offering, 7 days of Pesach, the 8 days of Sukkot, or on Shavuos, Shuvein Chagig, it's finished. Can't bring it anymore. My love.
So it's really, there's a hidden Mishalot Hevi.
Yeah. Mishlei Chag means he didn't do his carbon Chagigah. My love, Yom Tov Shel Atzeres. When it says he didn't bring it on Atzeres, it means he didn't bring it on Yom Tov. This is a kasha on Rabbi Lazar Amar Rabbi Ishia that says you have 7 days. So you see, you don't have 7 days. You have 1 day. It's a strong kasha. The Gemara says Lo Yom Tevuach. It's talking about if you didn't bring it on the day after. Okay. Still a kasha on Rabbi Lazar Amar Rabbi Ishia. You only have 1 day to bring it up. Comes out that there's only 1 day. The Gemara says Ema Yemei Tevuach. There's days. Adjust it. Okay, we're going to adjust things to fit. That's how we'll answer this question. Tashema, come and listen. The Tani Rabba Bar Shmuel. Amra Torah Menei Yamim B'Kadosh Chodesh. The Torah says, count days and sanctify the month. It was a little bit problematic because we didn't always think that this is how we did it. We thought that witnesses would come. Taisus Lanes is a little different. It's talking about count the years and establish the Yovel. It's like he changes the girsa. But whatever, whichever way it is, count the days and establish the month. How many days do you count? 30 days. And that's going to be Rosh Chodesh. Minei Yamin, count days. V'Kadish Atzeres. And sanctify Shavuos. How many days do you count? 49. 50 days. The 50th day is Shavuos. Ma Chodesh L'Menuyev V'Atzeres L'Menuyev. Just like one of the unit that's being counted is actually the same unit that you come up with at the end. So if you're counting days, Rosh Chodesh is going to be one of those days, the same unit. If you're counting days for Shavuos, 49 days. So when you get to the 50th day, that unit of 50, that unit of day is going to be what Shavuos is. My love, Gamar Mechodesh, Ma Chodesh Yem Echad Atzeres Yem Echad. Must be Shavuos is only one day. That's what we're learning from here, because it's what you're counting that you're going to be left with. That's what your result is. Amar Rava, Tizbra to Atzeres Yomi Maninan Shvuilei Maninan. What are you saying? Shavuos, you only count to get to Shavuos. You only count days. You don't count weeks. Abaya says that it's a mitzvah to count days. But in the Omer, you also have to count how many weeks it is. You have to count 7 weeks. So that's a good answer. What's coming out is that the unit that you counted, that's what you have at the end. So it's the holiday of Shavuos is really 7 days, which we're referring to making up the tashlumin, making up for the sacrifices. Those days. Also, it says clearly that it's a holiday of Shavuos, of weeks. Okay, so that's a source that you have days to make up the holidays, for the sacrifice for Shavuos. The Bei Rabbi Elazar ben Yaakov Tana, the yeshiva of Rabbi Elazar ben Yaakov has a brisa. It says, "Amakra ukrasem ubekutzrechem." It says, you'll call out on the essence of the day. And that says also, when you harvest the harvest of your land, it says Mikra Kodesh, it's a holy calling. Which holiday do you call out that it's holy? And you also harvest. This is referring to the to Shavuos. Amos, when do you harvest? Do you harvest on Yom Tov? It says when you harvest, that's when you have the holiday. But you can't harvest on Yom Tov. We always learned that it meant the season. But the Gemara over here is taking it literal, that it's talking about actually harvest. Now on Pesach, you would actually do a harvest for the Omer. But on Shavuos, what type of harvest do you have on Shavuos? You didn't have to cut the grain for the Shtei Alechem. That was done before. You're allowed to harvest on Yom Tov. You're allowed to do malachas on Yom Tov that are necessary for food, but you're not allowed to do those first malachas of plowing, harvesting, and grinding, and bundling and grinding. That you're not allowed to do on Yom Tov. You're only allowed to do the kneading and the baking, all of that stuff. Elalav l'tashlumin. It must be that what are we talking about over here? That you're harvesting on the holiday, you're harvesting on the makeup days of the holiday, which is the other 7 days. This is a proof that you have more time to make up those sacrifices. We already had a proof for this. What do you bring another proof? We said Chag HaMatzos, Chag HaShavuos, Chag HaSukkos, that you have 7 days. Why do we need Rabbi Elazar ben Yaakov to tell me that I have days to make it up? So it says like this: if you would just have that Chag HaMatzos, Chag HaShavuos, Chag HaSukkos, Havamina, Mata Shlumin Shel Chag HaMatzos Asa B'Siyas Malacha, after Shlumi Atzeres Nami Asa B'Siyas Malacha. It would have said that what's going on by Pesach? The holiday is 7 days. It's not just make up time for the sacrifice. Just like the holiday, it's a 7-day holiday. You're not allowed to do work for those 7 days. Well, it's not so simple. But whatever the case is, there's certain work clearly that I'm not allowed to do. I would say also Shavuos, I'm not allowed to do work for 7 days. Kamashman the Rab Elazar ben Yaakov, that tells me no, clearly I am allowed to do work. I'm actually harvesting during those 7 days. It's a very important halacha. If it would just tell me Rab Elazar Amar Rabbi Yishia that I compare it to Pesach, I wouldn't know that I'm allowed to do work during the makeup days of the sacrifice. The Rab Elazar ben Yaakov, which seems to be perfect, I'm allowed to do work. I have 7 days to make up. The only problem is layadana kama. I wouldn't know how many days it is because it just says you're harvesting. It's only a comparison to Pesach that tells me that it's 7 days to make up the holiday. Rabbi Elazar ben Yaakov doesn't have a comparison to Pesach. He just says that when you harvest the grain, that's when you can celebrate this holiday. But how many days do you harvest the grain? I wouldn't have known that it's 7. So I need Rabbi Elazar Amar Rabbi Yishia to tell me that it's 7. Kamashmalan, the Rabbi Elazar Amar Rabbi Yishia. Rish Lakish has another pshat. He says v'chag hakotzer. It says it's called the holiday of harvest. Eizu chag shata chagig v'kotzer by. Which holiday do you celebrate plus harvest? Haviyem is atzeres. We say it's Shavuos. That's when you harvest. Emas, but when are you harvesting? Ilema biyamtiv. If it's on Yamtiv, Ktsir biyamtiv mishari. This is exactly the Gemara before. Are you allowed to harvest on Yamtiv? Elav l'tashlum, and it must mean that you're harvesting on the makeup days. So just like we said, he says it by Chag HaKotzer. Amar Rabbi Yochanan. Rabbi Yochanan says, Elameyata. According to you, that you're saying that the harvesting that it says means that you actually harvest on the holiday. When it says in the Torah, Chag HaAsif, the holiday of gathering in, which is the holiday of Sukkot. Ezu Chag sheyesh b'yasifa, havayomer ze Chag HaSukkos. Would say, which holiday do you gather in? We'll say that's the holiday of Sukkot. Emas. When do you gather in on Sukkot? Ilema b'yamtiv. Do you say that it's on Yamtiv? Malacha b'yamtiv mishari. Are you allowed to do malacha on Yamtiv, to do gathering the grain and taking it inside? That's a malacha. Ela b'chel shamayid. Must be talking about in the intermediate days. Chol shamayid mishari. You're allowed to do harvesting. It's not harvesting here. It's gathering. You're allowed to gather in the grain on Chol Hamoed. Ela chag haba b'zman asifa. It must be. It doesn't mean that you actually perform this work on Yom Tov. It's talking about the season. That Sukkot is in the season of gathering. That's the way we were learning it the whole time. If it's the season, Sachanami Chag haba b'zman ktsira, Rish Lakish and Rabbi Elazar ben Yaakov, all of your proof falls off. We're not talking about that you're harvesting on the Yom Tov. We're talking about it's the season of harvest. Mechlal, the Tavayu, okay. That's Rabbi Yochanan's proof. Mechlal, this implies that Tavayu Svila, the Chayla Shalmai, Rasa Basiyas Malacha. They both must hold, Rish Lakish and Rabbi Yochanan must hold that you're not allowed to do work on Chol Hamoed, because they had to come up with this answer. Either it's the season, or they have to tell me how does he get that? Rish Lakish holds that. The way he gets that Rish Lakish holds that is because Rabbi Yochanan makes a claim to Rish Lakish. He says, when are you doing the gathering? Are you doing the gathering on Yom Tov? It's not allowed. Are you doing it on Chol Hamoed? It's also not allowed. It must be the season. Now Rish Lakish could have responded, what do you mean it's not allowed? Of course it's allowed. It's Chol Hamoed. Must be. Why doesn't Rish Lakish respond that? Because he doesn't hold of it. That means both Rabbi Yochanan and Rish Lakish hold that you're not allowed to do malacha on Chol Hamoed. The Gemara asks, Minani Mili, how do you know that you can't do malacha on Chol Hamoed? Now, there's a big discussion here in Tosfos that
They learned
didn't you learn my cotton? Over there, it could be that it's only derabanan. Malacha is only derabanan. Here, it's mashma that malacha is a deraisa on Chol Hamoed. The problem is if malacha is a deraisa, I mean, that's what the Gemara seems to be asking. That what's our source? The problem is that why is it mutter if it's a davar of it? Usually, malachas deraisa don't go off when there's a loss. You know, it doesn't get adjusted because of financial concern. That's the rabbis can the Raisa, if it's a malacha d'oraisa, how did it work? The Rabbanan does. Okay. The Tanur Rabbanan we started in the Brayse says Chag HaMatzos Tishma Shivas Yamim. The holiday of Pesach. It's not really the holiday of Pesach. Chag HaMatzos, the holiday of Matzos. Chag Pesach from the Torah is just the 14th. Chag HaMatzos is the 15th until 21st. So it says that you celebrate for 7 days Chag HaMatzos. Limit al Cholish shel Moed she'asur ba'asiyas malacha divrei Rabbi Yoshia. Rabbi Yoshia says this teaches us that you have 7 days that it's forbidden to do work, including Chol HaMoed. Can't do work on Chol HaMoed. Rabbi Yonasan Omer, ein tzarech. Yonasan says, I don't need this. This is not, it's an unnecessary limud to tell me that it's forbidden to do work on Chol HaMoed based on this. I know it anyway. Why? Because Kal v'chaimer. I have an a fortiori. That's it's logical. If the first day of the holiday, what was before the first day of the holiday? Nothing, regular weekday. And the last day of the holiday, what's after the last day of the holiday? Nothing, it's just a weekday. And nevertheless, that day itself, or those days themselves, are Asa B'Siyas Malacha. So Chilish HaMoed, the intermediate days of the holiday, Sheish Kedusha Lefnei Malach, they're sandwiched in between two holy days. Ain't a din she should for sure be yasser b'malacha. It's sandwiched in between holiness. It has to be holy also. The Gemara says, well, that's not so simple, because sheishis mei bereishis yechichu sheish kedusha lefnei malachreim mutar b'siyas malacha. What about Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday that are sandwiched in between Shabbos and Shabbos? And apparently, I'm allowed to do work. Maybe someone that says no. But I'm allowed to do work on a weekday, even though it's sandwiched in between. Before Sunday was Shabbos. After Friday is Shabbos.
Before creation.
Oh, that's a machlekes. Actually, it depends how you look at it. There was a discussion over there. If someone gets lost in the desert, what does he do? Does he count 6? And keep 1? Remember Rav Huna Breder, Rav Yeshua, and Rav Papa, I think. Or does he count 1 and then 6? Does he keep Shabbos and then count 6 days? That was a discussion. And it was based on, do we learn from Hashem's Shabbos, which started with 6 and then 1? Or does he learn from Adam Rishon Shabbos, which started with 1 and then he has 6? So Mal Sheshis Mei Bereishis Shem Bem Karban Musaf. What is this comparison? The 6 days in between Shabbos, you have Shabbos at the beginning, you have Shabbos at the end, you have 6 days in the middle. Those 6 days, you don't bring a Karban Musaf. You can't compare. It's not a holiday that we're going to say that it's going to be Asr B'Asiyas Malacha, as opposed to Chol HaMoed. That on Chol HaMoed, what do you have? On Chol HaMoed, you have a Karban Musaf. The Gemara says, Mal Sheisim Mei Bereishis Shem Bem Karban Musaf, Tem B'Chol HaShemoed Sheish Be Karban Musaf. But the Gemara says, well, 1 second. Rosh Chodesh Yechiach. What about Rosh Chodesh? Sheish Be Karban Musaf, U'Matar B'Asiyas Malacha. It can't be the Karban Musaf. What are you going to say, that there's 30 days on each side? No, the Gemara is not doing that. But which is interesting. Why doesn't the Gemara do that? So Rosh Chodesh has a Karban Musaf, and you're allowed to do work. It's not so simple. You're allowed to do work, but whatever the case is, it's not called a Yom Tov. The women don't do work. Okay. Okay. About work. Right. Right. Yeah. The Gemara says, Mal Rosh Chodesh ain't Kari Mikra Kodesh. It's not called the holy calling, a holy gathering. It doesn't say that on for Rosh Chodesh. It only says that for the Yom Tovim. Yeah, it's the famous Ramban al Torah. Says Mikra Kodesh means that we have to go to Shul on Yom Tov. Mikra Kodesh, it's a holy calling, which means you have to gather together in Shul. So, Taimer b'chelish shel mayit shekari Mikra Kodesh, hayol v'kari Mikra Kodesh tinu shasa b'siyas malacha. So he says because it's called a holy calling, a holy gathering. So then it's logical that it should be asur b'malacha. This is all Rabbi Yonasan telling me that I don't need a pasuk to teach me that Chalamayid is asur to do work the way Rabbi Yoshia had a pasuk. He had a pasuk as Chag HaMatzos Tishma Shivas Yamim that teaches me that 7 days I can't do work. Rabbi Yonasan says it's not necessary. I know that you can't do work because it's Mikra Kodesh. Okay. Rabbi Yonasan, by the way, according to some sages, some scholars, is really Reb Nosson. Reb Nosson is like a shortened version of Rabbi Yonasan. Tanya Yidach. Taught in a brisa. Kol malach savayda leisasu. All malach savayda, all work should not be done. Limit achol shel mayit shasa b'siyas malacha. Div Rabbi Yosei Aglili. This is Rabbi Yosei Aglili's opinion. Rabbi Kiva Imer netzarech. Rabbi Kiva says it's not necessary. Just like Rabbi Yonasan did. It says these are the holidays of God. With what is the pasuk talking about? In Berishain, if it's talking about the first day of the holiday, the first day of the holiday already said Shabbasin, which is a day of rest. In Beshvi, if it's the seventh day of the holiday, it also says Yom Shvi Shabbasin. When it says it must be referring to Chalamayid. Teaches me that I can't do work on Chalamayid. It's pretty clear that work on Chalamayid is a daraisa. I mean, that's what it's coming out. Yeah, the way we learned it in Ma'id Katan was that we know that it's a daraisa. This is the way the Rashi said it over there. We know that the malachas is a daraisa. The shaila is which malachas. That decision of which malachas, that was all rabbinic. Yeah. Tanya Yidach. It was taught in a brisa. I don't know if we have other examples of that. Do the sages determine what the Torah? I guess maybe. Tanya, we have another source for this. 6 days you should eat matzahs. And the seventh day it's atzeres. What's atzeres? Mashvi yatzar. Just like on the seventh day you stop from work. Also the 6 days you don't do work. Can't do malacha.
6 days is only not for as a boy. Only 7 days to keep or 6 days to keep is the matzah. The rest of it maybe you can work.
Yeah, so the Gemara says about matzah. No, the Gemara says that mashisha rishus afshvi rishus. That's really the matzah you have to be supposed to eat on the seventh day as well, because it says another place 7 days you eat matzah. So why does it say 6 days you eat matzah? It's coming to tell me that the seventh day it's not really obligatory. It says, the seventh day isn't obligatory to eat matzah. The 6 days also isn't obligatory. Now we're doing it something. Now we're saying it says that the 6 days you're not allowed to do work. It says the seventh day you're not allowed to do work. So it says just like the seventh day you're not allowed to do work, it's also the 6 days you're not allowed to do work. Well, I knew the 6 days you weren't allowed to do work. It actually didn't say all 6. It just said, when it says atzeres, it says that the first day you can't do work, the seventh day you can't do work. Now it says again atzeres, which means you can't do work. So that the extra expression of atzeres, just like the seventh day you can't do any work, also the 6 days before you can't do any work except for Eichel Nefesh. Talmud Leimar b'yem hashvi atzeres, hashvi atzer b'chol malacha vein sheish yom atzer b'chol malacha. Okay, the 6 days it's not forbidden all work. It's only the seventh day. It was given over to the sages. Tells me which days are totally forbidden, which days are not totally forbidden, and then even then, it's that the sages make up which they decide which malachas are going to be asur on Chalamayid. Okay, now the Gemara said, the Mishnah said that mutarim behesped v'tainer shlei l'kaimus divreim atzeres achar Shabbos. You were allowed to do eulogies and fasting on the Yom Tevuach that fell on Sunday, because we wanted to make sure that we don't accept the words of the Tzedukim that say that Shavuos is always on a Sunday, because Mimachar Shabbos, the counting begins always on a Sunday. We wanted to negate that, so we say that you're allowed to do eulogies and fasting on that day. It's not considered a holiday. V'yitmar or v'hatanya, Maisa umeis Alexa, Belud. I was afraid that some phones are going to start talking to me now. Remember I did that once? I mentioned Google and the phone started to say, well, what would you like? So Alexa died. I don't know who that is. I don't know. In Lud. V'nichnasu kol Yisrael l'seiftai. I thought it was a girl. Turns out l'seiftai. It's a he. It's a shortened Alexander. So, Alex, right? Everyone came in to eulogize. Reb Tarfon didn't let. Is there a note who this is? Is there a note in the? Oh, I hear. Because it was Shavuos. Now, I think it's not talking about Shavuos. I think it's talking about Yom Tov Sal Kadaita. They're coming to eulogize on Yom Tov. It can't be even Yom Tov Mikasa. They can't come on Yom Tov. Ella Ema Pnei Yom Tevuachaya. What it meant was it was the makeup day. Now we have a problem. The Mishnah said that on the makeup day for the tashlumin of the sacrifices, you're allowed to make a eulogy. And now we're learning that Reb Tarfon did not allow them to make the eulogy. So, like Kasha, Reb Tarfon is around the Rabbi Kiva's thing. You're looking for Reb Tarfon? Yeah, he was a friend over here. Let's see. It's up here. Reb Tarfon is right there. So the Gemara says, "Kam b'yom tov shchaliyas achar Shabbos, kam b'yom tov shchaliyas b'Shabbos." If Yom Tov fell on Shabbos, so then you would actually be allowed to make the eulogies, as it says in our Mishnah, because that was the Yom Tevuach, and we don't want Sunday to be a real celebration, so you're allowed to make eulogies and fast. But if it's Yom Tov Shchaliyas Achar Shabbos, if it was just in the middle of the week, then Yom Tevuach, there was no reason to make eulogies, so it was actually forbidden to make eulogies any other day. It was only Sunday where we had that problem and we allowed eulogies. But on a regular Yom Tevuach, if Shavuos was on a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, then Yom Tevuach would be the following day. It was forbidden to do the eulogies, and that's why Reb Tarfon didn't allow the eulogies for Alexa. Okay. We started a new discussion, which is going to take us till the end of the Masechta. You sort of get tricked into this with Chagigah being so much fun. And once you bite in, you're stuck. You have to go through this. It's Tum and Tara. So, too late. You ready? Okay. We can handle it. It's not a big deal. It wasn't the topic you were expecting. Naitan liyadayim l'chulin. You have to wash your hands before you eat chulin, before you eat any mundane food. You hear that? You have to take a vessel that holds a revius of water, to pour it over your hands before you start eating. That's why we wash for bread. Yeah, we'll see those details soon. Ulamaiser, if you go to the base of, not the base of English, you go to your shalayim to eat your meiser sheni, you have to wash your hands before you eat. Ula truma, and before you eat truma, you have to wash your hands. Ula kaidesh, but if you want to eat a sacrifice, it's not enough just to take a kvart by the sink. You have to actually go into a mikveh, not with your body, just your hands. You have to dip your hands, matbilin, you have to dip your hands in a mikveh of 40 sa. Go over to the mikveh, you dip your hands in. Ula chatas, if you want to handle the water of the para aduma, sprinkle that water. Nitmu yadav. Let's say the hands were actually tamei. Nitma gufay. It's not enough to clean the hands. You have to go into a mikveh the entire body.
I have a question.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Yesterday's Tanya or Yomi, something was talking about, it was the thought of the day. Someone was talking about the kior, the washing, for the outside. Once was enough, but once you got inside, no,
Yeah.
you had to do it every single time for everything. But so which means the Kohanim or Levium, whatever, every mitzvah they did inside, they had to wash. But I assumed that was regular washing. This would sound like they would have to dip their hands in the mikvah, which was downstairs.
Question time over.
No, you know what I'm
Yeah.
saying?
Yeah.
So is that what the Gemara is saying?
No. This is for regular things. They would have to wash their hands. You're asking. Kodesh matfilen. He's asking. Dr. Stein is asking that that there was a kior. The kior was a faucet that they poured out of. It wasn't matfilen. They weren't dipping their hands in. How does that work? I'm not sure.
Yeah, but that was for the outside. When they're inside, every single mitzvah they had to wash for. I'm saying, what was inside, the mikvah was that they didn't go down each time, or did
Right.
they before each?
They
go?
did in the morning probably.
Once.
Yeah.
And here it's saying for before each mitzvah, you have to.
One second. Tava l'chulin. Let's say someone went to the mikveh with the intention that he's going to be eating chulin. You don't have to go to the mikveh for chulin, but that's where he went in. He's being toivel and he's going to have regular food. So huchsak l'chulin. It was good for chulin. Huchsak, I thought he meant was neskaven. It's good for chulin, but it's also a meiser. It's not considered that he went to the mikveh that he's now eligible to eat meiser. The kavana that he uses when he goes to the mikveh limits him to what he went to the mikveh for. Yeah. Taval meiser. That kavana matters.
Yeah.
You'll see.
Okay.
Taval meiser. If he goes to the mikveh meiser, chsek l'meiser asel truma. It's not good for truma. Taval truma, chsek l'truma asel l'kodesh. It's not good enough for sacrifices. Taval l'kodesh, chsek l'kodesh asel l'chatas. It's not good enough for the higher level, which is for the paraduma. Taval l'chamer mutal l'kal. If you go to the mikveh with intention for the higher level, then that's good for the lower level. Taval b'lei huchsak. Let's say someone goes to the mikveh, he didn't have any intention at all. He just let's go in the bath. He's taking a bath. Kilei taval. That's not a mikveh. That's just a bath.
Whatever, not just
כמו
the bath.
שאוכלים מצה בפסח, לא התכוונת, יצאת ידי מצווה, גם אותו דבר פה, שאתה נכנס למקווה, לומד
Not a
המון.
bath. No, I went to the mikveh.
Yeah, the mikveh works a little different. Mikveh is like meyadas. The intention matters. Meyadas atar, like the Rambam writes.
Is it like the wrong intention where line or depth?
No, it's not it's here. It's just saying you have to go again. Yeah, it's not a big deal. You're allowed to bathe. You're allowed to. It's just you have to intend for what you're doing.
What is the kavanah nowadays that we're supposed to have? I mean, a lot of times.
Yeah,
That's a basic one.
They joked. They told the Ger Rebbe, "What kavanah should I have when I go to the mikveh?" He said, "Vash schneller arois." That means get out quick. Yeah, like Siddim would sit around, soaking, and schmooze and all of that. But yeah. Okay. There was one guy used to go to the mikveh, do all his exercises in there. Yeah, he would go in. Yeah, he would, I don't know. Oh, really? So, Big Day Amaretz. Yeah, the mikveh is supposed to be the mikveh. The mikveh is you're going for holy purposes, not for anything else. Big Day Amaretz. Clothing of an Amaretz Medjus Leprusim. It's considered tamei. Now, the term medras is that it's an avatuma, and that if someone touches it, actually can make a person tummy. Usually, we don't say that it should make a person, but here we're saying it's considered an avatuma that will even make a person tummy. Clothing of an amaretz is so not trusted that we consider his clothing tummy. Big day prushim are people that are careful. They eat their chulin with purity. So medras leichli truma, that's considered tummy for someone that eats truma. Yeah, it's all levels over here of big day eichli truma, medras lekaidesh. Someone that eats truma doesn't mean that it's good enough for kaidesh. Big day which means sacrifice. Big day kaidesh medras lechatas. The clothing of someone that eats karbanas doesn't mean that it's good enough for a paraduma. Yeah, a doctor one time explained this to me. He says, "Look, my hands are clean, but before I eat, I'm going to wash them, and even then they'll be clean. But before I do a surgery, I'm going to wash them again." So it's going to wear gloves. So yeah, it's clean, but it doesn't. It's all relative to what you need to do. So okay. Yosi ben Yayezer hayachasid shebekuna v'is mitpachti medras lekaidesh. Yosi ben Yayezer was a chassid shebekuna. I don't know what that means, but nevertheless, his cloth was medras for kaidesh. For when it comes to eating a karban, it was considered tamei. Yochanan ben Gudgaida hayaichal al taras hakaidesh kol yamav. Yochanan ben Gudgaida, his whole life he ate chulin betara. Everything was even his chulin, he ate it in purity. He would make sure that nothing would become tamei. His clothing was considered tamei for paraduma. Al taras hakaidesh. He ate it for taras, not taras truma. He ate it as if it was a karban. All his food, he ate it as if it was a karban.
This is something it's not a okay. Pretty weird. Saying what the people you put on.
It looked like he is a kayan, and everything he ate, even if it wasn't a karban, he ate it at the level of kaidesh. Doesn't maybe it's a kayan, maybe not. I don't know, but it's as if he kept it to that level of purity, and we considered his clothing still tummy for paraduma. Whatever his cloth was, his clothing, even in the base of English, would still not be pure enough for the paraduma. You follow?
The commentary here, first of all, says he was a Kohen.
Okay.
He was a Nasi, there's a whole bunch of things. And also the Medrash is talking about the napkin after he eat, wiping himself. So not his clothes, but the napkin was the Medrash.
Okay.
If I'm understood.
That's good. Okay. Mitpachas is a napkin. Chulin, the Gemara asks, Chulin umaiser bo netilas yadayim. You have to wash your hands for chulin. Who made that up?
Well, you would wash the chulin if possibly the food was tummy.
No, if the food's tummy, I don't need to wash. Why should I wash my hands? Maybe I don't want to make certain foods tummy, and my hands may be tummy. I don't want to make it tummy, but chulin is allowed to be tummy. And probably meiser is also allowed to be tummy. It's not holy. So why do I have to wash my hands? Right? I'm allowed to eat chulin, tummy chulin. For a mini, we have a contradiction. It says like this: Hatruma v'abikurin chayavan aleya misa. When it comes to truma, that's what's given to the kayan, 2%. What's given to the base of Migdash, bikurim. If a zar eats it, he's chayav misa. Misa b'dei shamayim. If he eats it b'mezid, v'chaymesh. If he eats it b'shaygig, he has to pay an extra fifth. Vasal lezarim, and it's prohibited to a non-kayan with a lav, a negative prohibition. V'hei nichse kayan. These items belong to the kayan. That means a kayan can give them to a woman and say that harayat mekudeshesly, you're betrothed to me with this food. And it's only bottled 1 in 100, not 1 in 60. You have to wash your hands beforehand. Why? Because the hands have a gzeira that they're considered a sheni l'tama. Right. So they're considered a sheni latama. The only thing is that there is no such thing as a shlishi lit. So whatever the hands touch don't become tummy. The only thing is for truma there is a shlishi. Truma becomes a shlishi, but other foods don't become a shlishi. So hands are considered a sheni, which doesn't make anything tummy unless it's truma or kaidash, which becomes even a revi. But v'herav shemesh, when it comes to truma and bikurim, for a person that was really tummy, not just because the hands touch, he's really tummy. He has to wait for nightfall. This rule only applies to truma and bikurim, not to maisa. Because ken b'chulen for sure for chulen it doesn't apply. So here we're saying that you don't have to wash your hands for maisa. You don't have to wash your hands for chulen. And now we're and the Mishnah says naitlan liyadayim lechulen ulamaisa letruma. You do have to. It's a contradiction. The Gemara answers kasha maisa. Well, first it says elaborates on the question. Kasha maisa maisa kasa chula chulen. It's a contradiction for maisa. It's a contradiction for chulen. Bishlam maisa maisa like kasha. We can answer. You know what's going on? We answer a question, a contradiction. We say it's a machlekes. So this event, you can also do that. You can say this opinion holds this opinion holds that. Harab meir, harabanan. It's a machlekes. The Tanan, stored in a Mishnah. Kalaton bias mayim midivri say from metamias akedesh peiseles truma. Anything that requires going to the mikveh for rabbinic reasons, that will be metame es akedesh. Metame means that it makes it tamei enough that it can go another level. Paisel means that it makes it tamei, but it stops there. What are we talking about over here? It's tar min hatayra. The Chachamim say that it's tamei. So they make it tamei as a sheni, like the hands, let's say. So it's paisel truma, and it's mitame kaidash, because kaidash goes to a revi, truma goes to a shlishi. So if the hands are second, they can make a third for truma, and which can even make a fourth for kaidash. Chachamim say no. Even for meiser, it could make a tamei. Okay, so that's our answer. The Mishnah is going according to the Chachamim that say that meiser is strict. The Meiser Sheni that's brought to Yerushalayim has the status of truma, that it could make a shlishi. Okay. How are you going to answer chulin? No one says that chulin you have to wash your hands for, like kasha. The Gemara says it's not a problem. You know what our Mishnah is talking about, that you have to wash your hands for chulin? That's talking about when you're eating it. You know what the Brisa says? You don't have to wash your hands for chulin. That's talking about touching it. We're not talking about eating it. We're talking about just handling it. It's an easy answer. One second. You want to tell me that Reb Meir and the Chachamim are arguing about touching Meiser? That's a machlekes? You want to tell me that the Mishnah is talking about eating, where you have to wash your hands? And the Brisa that says that there's machlekes Reb Meir and the Chachamim regarding Meiser is only about touching, because over there it clearly says that for chulin you don't have to wash, so it must be touching. That's not true. They're also talking about eating. That means we don't have any source. I'm going to give the Meiser. No one holds that you have to. No one holds that you have to that you have to wash your hands. Achila the chulin like pligi. So where would we say? How could our Mishnah say that you have to wash your hands to eat chulin if the whole machlekes was about eating meiser? You're right. Everything is talking about achila. Even the Bryce is talking about achila. Leikasha kan bachila de nama, kan bachila de peri. Our Mishnah is talking about eating bread. When it comes to bread, there's an opinion that says that you have to wash your hands, even if it's chulin. The Brisa that was talking about that, it's only meiser that you have to wash your hands according to the Chachamim. That's because they were eating fruits. As it says, Damar Rab Nachman, Kol Hanetel Yadav Leperes Reizim Migasei Ruach. Rab Nachman says that washing your hands for fruits, that's considered arrogance. Yeah, we have to see. It's not so pashut. Yeah. Okay. Let's leave it over here.
Welcome back, Yossi Druin. Welcome back,
Yeah.
Yossi Druin.
Bye bye. Thank
Yeah.
you